Zach Cooper and his mom, Gail, moved from New York to the quiet town of Madison, Delaware. As they stepped out of the car, Zach couldn't shake the spooky feeling that someone was watching him from the next house. But he brushed it off and started carrying their belongings inside. That's when he nearly dropped a box. His new neighbor, a girl named Hannah, had suddenly appeared. She smiled and introduced herself. But before Zach could say much, an angry man with a stern face, Mr. Shivers, glared at him from the window. His voice was cold as he warned Zach to stay away from his daughter. The next morning, in Madison High School, Zach and his mom went to a community hall where she was introduced as the new assistant principal of the high school. While she spoke with the staff, Zach met a talkative guy named Champ who mentioned the upcoming school dance and gave Zach his number. Just in case Zach found someone to go with, they could head there together. That evening, Zach went to the backyard to throw out the trash. Suddenly, a faint voice of an animal scared him, but it was Hannah startling him from behind. His heart raced. Before he could ask, she grabbed his hand and led him toward the forest. At first, Zach wondered if she was some kind of serial killer, but then he saw it, a massive abandoned amusement park hidden among the trees. As they climbed the giant Ferris wheel, Zach opened up about his dad passing away last year, leaving just him and his mom. Hannah, in turn, revealed she had never met her mother. It felt like they had known each other forever. Afterward, Zach walked Hannah home, but instead of taking the front door, she used the broken fence behind the house. That's when Mr. Shivers spotted Zach again, his eyes cold and unforgiving. This time, his warning was more serious. If Zach ever saw Hannah again, something terrible would happen. The very next night, Zach sat at his desk, struggling through his math homework, when he heard shouting. He looked out the window. Hannah and Mr. Shivers were arguing. And then, Hannah screamed. Without thinking, Zach ran over to check on her along with the police and his mom. But when Mr. Shivers opened the door, his face was unsettlingly calm. He insisted there was no scream, no argument. Hannah had left for London with her mom. The noise? Just a horror movie playing on surround sound. Officer Stevens and Officer Brooks warned Zach about filing false reports. Gail was furious. She scolded Zach for spying on their neighbors and even called her cousin Lorraine to babysit him. But as Lorraine gossiped about her boyfriend, Zach glanced out the window and froze. Mr. Shivers was talking to Hannah. She hadn't left after all. He had been right. Determined to save her, Zach came up with a plan. He told Lorraine he had a test to study for and warned her not to enter his room. It was a lie. Instead, he called Champ, tricking him into thinking they were going to the dance. In reality, they were sneaking into Shivers' house. Inside, they found themselves in an upstairs office filled with bookshelves. But these weren't just any books. Every title was from the Goosebumps series, and each one had a lock on it. Why would someone lock up books? Champ picked up one called The Abominable Snowman of Pasadena, wondering why it, like the others, was sealed. Zach spotted a key on the desk and, without thinking, unlocked it to prove a point. As Zach insisted there was nothing special about the books, a sudden shadow moved. Before they could react, a baseball bat swung toward them. Both Zach and Champ dropped to the floor just in time. The lights flicked on, revealing Hannah, who had mistaken them for burglars. As Zach apologized, explaining that he was just trying to find her, he grabbed the book from the floor. But as the cover flipped open, a gust of icy wind filled the room. The real Abominable Snowman of Pasadena burst from the pages, smashing through the walls and escaping into town. The impact knocked several other manuscripts to the ground. One of them, Night of the Living Dummy, slid open. Zach, Hannah, and Champ chased the snowman to a local ice rink, where it attacked them. But just as things seemed hopeless, Mr. Shivers appeared and sucked the creature back into its book. On the way home, Zach finally realized the truth. Mr. Shivers was actually R.L. Stine, the famous Goosebumps author. Back at the house, Stine told Hannah to start packing, insisting they needed to leave. But Hannah didn't want to go. This town had become her home. Before they could argue, Zach and Champ stormed in, demanding an explanation. Stine revealed that as a lonely kid, he had created monsters to scare those who bullied him. But one day, his creations became real and uncontrollable. To trap them, he had to lock each one inside its own manuscript. He sold harmless copies to the world, which made him famous. As they picked up the scattered books, Stine's face went pale. One was missing. Sitting in a chair, grinning with a strange joy, was Slappy the Dummy. Enraged at being imprisoned for so long, Slappy burned his own manuscript and fled, taking all the other books with him. Slappy tore through Madison in a haunted car, unleashing terrifying creatures from other books. Creeping plants crushed telephone towers, cutting off communication. The body squeezers from Invasion of the Body Squeezers froze Officer Stevens, Officer Brooks, and the entire police department. Reaching the town, Zach and the others found frozen citizens and knew they had to act fast. Zach suggested Stein write a new book that could pull all the monsters back inside. But there was a problem. He needed his special typewriter. When Zach asked where it was, Stein revealed it was locked away at their high school. Racing toward the school in Stein's car, the group barely had time to react as ghostly handprints appeared on the windshield. The Invisible Boy, a sinister creation, attacked Champ, slamming him against the window. Stein hit the brakes, knocking the Invisible Boy off balance. But before they could breathe, a giant mantis appeared, crashing into their car. They barely escaped before the creature crushed the vehicle. From a nearby supermarket, they watched as Stein's car was reduced to rubble. The group hurried through a dark cemetery, but Hannah got caught on a statue. Zach quickly freed her, and for a moment, they were about to kiss. But under the moonlight, Hannah's body glowed with a ghostly blue hue, revealing the shocking truth. She wasn't human. Before Zach could question her, terrifying ghouls from Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls rose from the graves and chased them. The four barely escaped and reached the high school just in time. Once inside, Zach pulled Stein aside, desperate for answers. Stein finally admitted that Hannah wasn't real. She was a Goosebumps character he created to ease his loneliness, most likely inspired by the ghost next door. Before Zach could process this, Hannah and Champ rushed in, announcing they had found the typewriter. Stein grabbed it and headed straight to the auditorium to start writing the story that could stop the mess. Meanwhile, Zach, Hannah, and Champ scrambled to warn everyone in the school. At first, no one believed them, but that changed when a giant praying mantis crashed onto the auditorium, lifting a student into the air. As Slappy and his army of monsters, lawn gnomes, a murderous clown, and countless others swarmed the building, panic erupted. Students and teachers rushed to escape. A couple tried to flee together, but a werewolf lunged at them. The terrified boyfriend abandoned the girl, who immediately broke up with him. The werewolf cornered her, but just before it could attack, Champ bravely sank his teeth into the beast's neck. The creature howled in pain and stumbled away. The girl, amazed, asked how he did it. Champ grinned and explained he had silver-filled teeth because he never brushed them as a kid. Overcome with gratitude, the girl hugged him and kissed him. In the auditorium, Slappy found Stein and, before he could finish writing, slammed the typewriter's case shut on his fingers, breaking them. Stein cried out in pain, unable to continue. Outside, the moonlight returned, and Hannah glowed once more. Champ and the hot girl saw it, and Champ, stunned, asked Zach if he really wanted to date someone who wasn't real. Zach, without hesitation, replied that he didn't care. As the school bus roared to life, Zach, Hannah, Stein, and Champ boarded it, escaping while the remaining students and staff were now safe inside. But the monsters weren't giving up. The mantis knocked the bus over, and the werewolf and the abominable snowman tore the door open. But it was a trap. The bus was rigged with explosives. As the creatures stormed inside, the bomb detonated, wiping out almost every monster, except for Slappy and the haunted car. Meanwhile, Stein and the kids had already escaped on a different bus, racing against time to finish the story before Slappy could get to them. The group rushed to the abandoned amusement park, knowing they had little time left. Stein told Zach exactly what to write because the story had to be complete for it to work. Meanwhile, the monsters destroyed in the explosion came back to life. The werewolf tracked their scent, leading Slappy right to them. Slappy smirked and pulled out a book titled The Blob That Ate Everyone. The moment he opened it, a massive, oozing blob burst to life, swallowing the funhouse where they were hiding. With no other choice, Stein told the kids to climb to the top of the abandoned Ferris wheel while he stayed behind to distract the monsters. But the blob was relentless. It lunged forward and swallowed Stein whole, trapping him inside its slimy body. Slappy cackled, taunting Stein that being trapped inside the blob was just like being locked inside one of his own books. But Slappy quickly realized something. Stein didn't have the manuscript that could defeat them. It was with Zach. Realizing the danger, Slappy commanded the monster army to go after Zach and the others. As the creatures swarmed, the Ferris wheel groaned under their weight. The giant mantis chewed through the bolts, and before Zach could react, the whole wheel broke free and rolled down the hill. It crashed at the bottom, but miraculously, Zach, Hannah, and Champ survived. Zach pulled out the finished book, ready to open it, but then he realized the horrible truth. If he did, all the monsters would be sucked back in, including Hannah. Hannah had known the truth all along. She wasn't real. She looked at Zach one last time and smiled before grabbing the book and opening it herself. One by one, the monsters were pulled into the swirling vortex. The blob got sucked in, spitting Stein out just in time. Slappy lunged at Stein, trying to drag him in too, but Stein kicked him straight into the portal. The last thing they heard was Slappy's furious scream before the book snapped shut. Zach and Hannah kissed one last time before she let go and disappeared into the book. Champ quickly closed it, sealing everything away for good. Sometime later, Madison High School was repaired, and life slowly returned to normal. Stein got a new job as the school's English teacher, and he even started dating Lorraine. Zach and Champ found themselves in Stein's class for the last period of the day. After class, Zach walked with Stein down the hallway when suddenly Hannah appeared. Stein smiled and revealed that he had written her back into existence with another book. To make sure she would never have to leave again, he set her book on fire and tossed it away. Zach and Hannah, overjoyed, held hands and walked out of the school together. But just as Stein was about to leave, something strange happened. His typewriter began typing by itself. The words, "The Invisible Boy's Revenge," appeared on the page. Stein's face turned pale, and before he could react, the story ended with his terrified scream echoing through the halls.